So, let's review Jupiter Ascending. If I can still remember the movie, that is. Oh, sick burn. Okay, I'm gonna stop embarrassing myself. Now, Jupiter Ascending is about a young woman called Jupiter who, just before she was born, her dad was murdered. But now she is a young woman, she's doing some reluctant work, and she's basically a house cleaner with her mother. It doesn't really look like her life is really going anywhere. That is until a young man called Cain shows up and informs her that she is a royal, that she's basically queen of all humans. And then a chase starts happening with some other people that want to track her down and kill her. And then we are transported to another planet. And that's when things start to unravel. Now, for a sci-fi film like Jupiter Ascending, where you get taken to another planet or another world, well, you need to have some pretty cool designs. And this film delivers on that front. The world building is really impressive. It is so rich and detailed and nice to look at that clearly a lot of thought and effort and creativity has gone into it. So much even that it rivals Peter Jackson's Middle Earth. And all of that is accompanied with almost seamless special effects, all of which doing a great job of further sucking you into the film, because I was immersed 100% of the time. Really did I feel like I was watching a movie. The film also moves by at a rapid pace and never really slowing down. Not a moment is wasted. There is always something happening on screen. Those 2 hours and 7 minutes, they move by smoothly, but not so fast that it feels rushed either. I could never bring myself to check my watch, as there was never really a safe or slow enough moment to do so. I really liked the simplistic nature of this film as well, because a lot of people have been saying that one of the main flaws is that it's overly complicated and messy. I just don't agree. Because sure, there are some further detailed plot points that are just brushed over, but those are ones that you don't really need to pay attention to. In fact, I'd encourage that you don't pay attention to them, because at the end of the day, this is a melodrama, but also a sci-fi. And just to give off a more sci-fi feel, they have some more complicated backstories. But you don't really need to pay attention to them because you need this film to be simple. And because it's a melodrama, it is simple. And it has a refreshingly simple plot that is easy to understand. It's very accessible. Like Cloud Atlas. And it doesn't take itself too seriously either. And there are some nice, semi-original and serious twists on the melodrama style that I really liked. Earlier, I did mention that the film has a lot of visual style that's really nice to look at, and that's incorporated through the action scenes. But these action scenes just aren't really well directed, because the way that all of the action scenes are edited and cut together just make all of the shots go after each other so fast that you just can't really see what's happening on screen for the majority of the action scenes. And then it all comes down to this huge main action climax at the end, which is lovely to look at. It's awesome. But then it just gets too carried away with showing too much in this climax. They want to show too many visual styles that it just becomes messy and it overstays its welcome. The acting is also pretty subpar. I'm not going to blame the actors here for this, because they are great actors and you can tell that they are trying their darn hardest. But I think it's really to do with the direction and the script given, because Channing Tatum has the right physicality and gives off the right attitude for the role, but he just comes off as bland and boring. Mila Kunis is also giving it her all, but her performance still comes off as average and doesn't really make her character any more interesting. Eddie Redmayne, now he should be the perfect match for a melodramatic villain, and he's really trying here, but it just comes off as if he's trying to channel his performance from The Theory of Everything into one of the earlier Bond villains, and it just doesn't mesh well. And worst of all is some jarring tonal changes. I mean, like, I loved the first 40 minutes because it had this corny, silly tone, and it was so self-aware. But once they get into space, it feels like the Wachowskis were like, well, we need to go for a different tone here. But it was so evident that they just didn't know what tone that was that they needed. Because it flips from one tone in one scene, then to another in that same scene with just so little transition that you're unsure of what tone it's really meant to be going for. It felt like, in that huge chunk where they're in space, that it felt like they were trying to decide whether they want to go for their tone in Speed Racer or their tone in The Matrix, and they just tried to mesh those two tones together at once, and it doesn't work at all. Now, the one sentence review. A refreshingly simple fantasy blockbuster with terrific world building, however, has problems with its delivery and needs to decide on its tone. I'm going to give Jupiter Ascending 3 stars out of 5. So, Jupiter Ascending is one of those films which I would recommend if you aren't really doing anything one night and you're like, oh, it's cheap Tuesday, I feel like going to the movies. Well, you know, I would recommend Jupiter Ascending if you've already seen Theory of Everything, Birdman and Kingsman. Because it's nothing you're going to remember in a week's time, but it's serviceable. It does the job. And I probably would have given it 2.5 stars if it wasn't for the fact that if you want to see this, I would really recommend going to the cinema, because just the visuals and the 3D, it's a TV screen ain't gonna do it justice. So that's me for the time being. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm Thomas, and that's a review.
I feel I have you at somewhat of a disadvantage.
Is that because you kidnapped me?
Some lives will always matter more than others.